you know that they don't really retire. After all, ministry is lifelong. That is true with 95-and-a-half-year-old Sister Mary Mark Mahoney. She's been a teacher, a spiritual director, and a census taker. But in retirement, she writes letters.
Saw this ad in National Catholic Reporter for people to correspond with prisoners. And there were two men, one in San Quentin on death row, one in Leavenworth, Kansas City. I got letters back immediately from both of them. And they both said in almost the same words, "How could you write to the scum of the earth, as people call us?" But you know, if it wasn't for my background, I might be right where you are. And that makes them feel comfortable. So I said, I just went on to tell them that, you know, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, so I'm no better than you. I just let them know that, you know, I was fine with them. And it gave them the right attitude.
Over the years, Sister Mary has corresponded with as many as 50 inmates at one time. Currently, she writes to about 16 men and women across the country, including a young woman named Kelly, who is serving a life sentence for murder.
What happened to her was that she had 3 children, and the 4th one was Hannah. She was 2 years old. She had many health problems. She'd need tube feeding and so on. But what happened to her was that she set the bed on fire, and Hannah burned to death. Your heart aches for those people. At least mine does.
She started to write me, and at first I was like, why does this nun want to write to me? I mean, who would ever want to write to me? I'm this big bad murderer. Why would anybody want to care about me? And so she just persistently kept writing, and she's a huge reason why I have jumped from, like, okay, maybe I'll believe in God today, you know, as long as He's doing something good for me. She just persistently kept writing, and her words, she persistently kept telling me that I'm not alone and that God loves me no matter what, and that she loves me, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful, just is, because in a place like this, you don't always feel like people care about you, even though they might say it. Even family might say it. You don't always feel it, but I feel it from her.
Well, it's not hard for God, because God understands sin. But God sees the circumstances. God knows their hearts. And I say, you know, the conversions that take place in those prisons is wonderful. Wonderful.
It's easy for me to forgive other people, for the most part, but to forgive myself, ooh, that was really, really hard. It took me until, I've been here since 1997, and it took me till the year 2003 to write to my priest in Hastings and ask him to come out here for a confession. And he came out here. It was May 14th, 2003, and he came out here, and I was just going to talk to him. I wasn't, and it ended up being a confession, and before that, I don't think I could have ever forgiven myself, or then truly forgiven a lot of other people. But after that, after my confession with Father Jim, it was enlightening. I felt so much lighter, so much better talking to him. And ever since then, it's easier for me to say, I still beat myself up for everything, but I don't beat myself up as bad. And then I remember that May 14th, I remember that, and it just helps a lot. It just reminds me that, that I'm not any bigger than God, that I can't forgive myself. I'm not perfect in my spirituality. I'm not anything, but what I do know is that I'm not alone and that God loves me no matter what. And so because I know that, I want to share it. You know, I mean, and it took me a long time to get there because I had to get past forgiving myself and then forgiving others, but mostly forgiving myself.
For people who've been exposed to prison life, from Sister Mary Mark to Kelly, from Frank Wood to St. Francis, there seems to be an understanding that behind the physical and emotional fences that can imprison people, there are profound opportunities for personal growth, insight, and change. After this message, we'll find out how our alpaca friends are a part of a much bigger approach to spirituality.